Commission. This meeting is being held electronically to comply with the Governor's Stay Safe Minnesota order and to ensure the safety of all residents and staff. All members of the HRRC and staff are participating from their homes or offices. For members of the Commission, please remember to mute your microphone when you are not speaking and raise your hand if you would like to speak. We ask that you do not use the chat function in WebEx as we meet unless you are having technology problems. We will have roll call votes for each motion this evening, as well as for adjournment. I will ask Reese Kareem to roll call after each motion. I will repeat the motion for the record before we vote, and will also repeat who made the motion and second it. We will have a full agenda again tonight, so please remember those watching, listening in, and your fellow commissioners, and let's try to stay on topic. Before we begin, there are a few things I'd like to cover for those listening in or watching online. The public had 2 ways to view the meeting tonight. They can watch the live stream on the city's YouTube channel or listen via phone using the WebEx call-in number. There is no community comment during the meeting tonight. The city is committed to hearing and receiving your input on matters. The public can send in comments to the City Council or HRC through the Council Correspondence web forum on our website. The recording of the meeting will also be available to watch on the city's website tomorrow. Go to the Watch a Meeting link under the I Want To tab on the homepage. Thanks in advance for your patience as we work to conduct this meeting online using different software types and people all participating from their own homes. We hope that there will not be any issues, but be assured that we will do our best to continue the meeting as best we can if there are any glitches. Thank you to everyone tuning in tonight for your interest in the HRC and the work in the city. Reese, could you call roll, please?
Yes, ma'am. Chair Behringer?
Here.
Commissioner Ishmael? Commissioner Ross?
Here.
Commissioner Felton?
Here.
Commissioner Epstein?
Here.
Commissioner Nelson? He's here. Commissioner Edwards?
Here.
Commissioner Stringer Moore?
Here.
Student Commissioner Lichtenberger?
Here.
Student Commissioner Misra?
Here.
Student Commissioner Bourne? Okay. That concludes roll call.
All right, moving on is the approval of the meeting agenda. Do we have any discussion about the agenda? Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved. Mark Felton.
All right.
Second.
I'm sorry.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve by Commissioner Felton and a second from Commissioner Stringer Moore. Lucy, can you call the roll, please?
Chair Behringer?
Aye.
Commissioner Ross?
Aye.
Commissioner Felton?
Aye.
Commissioner Epstein?
Aye.
Commissioner Nelson?
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards?
Aye.
Commissioner Stringer Moore?
She's muted.
Aye.
Sorry. Did it not come through today?
We see ya.
That concludes roll call.
Okay, and then next we have approval of the meeting minutes from last time, October 27th. Do we have any discussion about the meeting minutes?
I had one change.
Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
One minor change, Madam Chair, and that is on the item Roman numeral 7, here in member comments. I made a comment about the community council, Edina Community Council, which didn't come across very clearly what I was trying to say. I think what I said was, and so I'm going to suggest the language on the second sentence read as follows. And Reese, I can send this to you. I've got it on a document. I can just shoot it to you by email also, but I'll read it. Commissioner Nelson also shared with the commission that after serving as the HRRC representative to the Edina Community Council, he would like another commissioner to take his place next year. But my intent was to say that's not just a position open, it is the HRRC the liaison position. It's open.
Oh, right, that's true. we have a seat on that council, so we will need to fill that position.
Right.
I'll make note of that.
All right, is there any other discussion about the meeting minutes from last time? All right, do I have a motion to approve with that change?
So moved.
Okay, and a second?
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion to approve by Commissioner Nelson and a second by Commissioner Epstein. Reese, can you call the roll?
Chair Behringer,
Aye.
Commissioner Ross,
Aye.
Commissioner Felton,
Aye.
Commissioner Epstein,
Aye.
Commissioner Nelson,
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards,
Aye.
Commissioner Stringer Moore.
Aye.
That concludes roll call.
Thank you. All right. Well, we have a full house and a lot of guests. Welcome to all of the members present with us tonight from the Housing Strategy Task Force. We are looking forward to your presentation.
Good evening to the members of the Edina Human Rights and Relations Commission, the Edina Planning Commission. My name is Dan Hunt. I am the co-chair of the task force along with Bernadette Hornig. Bernadette and I will be making the presentation tonight. The other members of the task force are on the call. Also, could I have the next slide, please? Slide 2. Reese, can you advance to the second slide? I'm gonna go ahead because I'm just gonna read off the slide anyway. So the members of the task force were Bernadette and myself, Janet Coutu, Joe Burke, Norm Siekman, Steve Brown, Thomas Kuhn. One of the original members, Feroza Mehta, had to resign after 6 months. She made some substantial contributions to the task force, and she was replaced by Steve Brown, who was a great pick to join in on. The city staff was Stephanie Hawkinson, who was with us almost every meeting, MJ Lamont, help from Scott Neal and Carrie Teague, and our consultant that wrote the report for us, Merritt Clapp-Smith, Antonio Rossell, and Jane Filstrin. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Dan. We felt strongly that the city is healthy and thriving, and any and all recommendations in this report, regardless of the severity and seeming intractability of the problem, must keep that in mind. Housing is changing in Edina. The single-family stock has been improved dramatically by teardowns and rehabs. The multifamily stock has grown significantly and appears to be on a course to continue that pace or even increase it. This report was developed during the COVID-19 pandemic, which limited the task force's ability to collect community input, and the social unrest resulting from the killing of George Floyd at the hands of the Minneapolis police raised all of our awareness about resource allocation to address racial disparities.
Next slide. Edina is a model of a successful, mature, progressive urban community because of the following traits: good schools, stable housing, proximity to jobs, accessible parks, mix of local retail and services, and established neighborhoods. Each of these factors complements the other in a virtuous cycle. Edina is fortunate to have these elements in place and has benefited economically from rising land values and a strong tax base. We are proud of these traits and intend to make them stronger. The quality of life surveys conducted every other year by the city of Edina have overall indicated that the residents of Edina believe that Edina is is a good to excellent place to live. The quality of life survey has also asked about people's concerns, such as, all in all, do you think things in Edina are generally headed in the right direction, or do you feel these things are on the wrong track? In 2019, 66%, or 2/3, said headed in the right direction. However, between 2017 and 2019, those who answered the wrong direction increased from 22% to 29%. Of these residents, 49% said that one of the primary concerns was poor development, overbuilding, and density of the city, which was an increase from 26% in 2017. The task force recommends that the concerns related to poor development, overbuilding, density of the city be investigated with new questions in the 2021 City of Edina Quality of Life Survey. One of Edina's strengths is that it has already established a wide variety of housing options and a wide distribution of housing types. Future planning should continue to accommodate the diverse housing in Edina. Next slide.
Thank you. During the course of our work, the task force developed 4 goals supported by 40 strategies. The goals are: promote life cycle housing, amend land use regulations to enable a more diverse housing mix, reduce building costs, encourage sustainable design and technology in all new and substantial rehab housing.
Next slide. The task force makes changes in zoning and regulation that will lead to lower development costs and more affordable, missing middle, and special needs housing in the areas of the city guided for higher densities. The task force recommends 5 priorities for the provision of new housing in Edina based on the Edina City Council's approved housing numbers in the 2040 Comprehensive Plan and further informed by the Maxwell Housing Market Survey. The task force recommends the following next steps for the City Council: solicit additional input via the Quality of Life Survey as noted earlier, evaluate the impact of the increased population and housing growth rate by housing types on all areas of the city, use the 5 priorities to evaluate new housing proposals when considering additional developments and growth, streamline the current approval process for housing development, finally recognize that to achieve the affordable housing goal of 992 units in the next decade, after having only built 212 units in the past 10 years, the city staff must redouble their current laudable effort and provide financial support and political leadership. Next slide.
Hey, and this is Mark Felton. Let me interrupt for a quick minute. When you're not speaking, can you mute yourself? And Bernadette, the same is true with you because I'm getting a lot of feedback. You hit the button at the very top of the screen between animations and review. The slideshow will show the full screen if you like. Thanks, you guys.
Reese, can you go to the last slide? Bernadette, you're still muted.
I thought I was supposed to be muted. Oh, thank you for listening to our presentation. If you have any questions, we're here to field any questions or comments. Thank you.
This is Jim Nelson. I have the document and I've gotten through about the 3rd or 4th of it. It's pretty long and we got it kind of late. But so I haven't gotten to the end, I guess, and seen the actual recommendations. But does this represent? I mean, I guess the question is, where does this fit in terms of the comprehensive plan? Does this represent more specific recommendations that are contained in the comprehensive plan?
I can answer that. The idea of this document is that it's meant to be a companion that helps to flesh out some of the housing strategies identified in the 2040 comprehensive plan. When the task force was put together by the city council, we were given a pretty broad charge, but I think the council's goal was to have more specifics and to have a focus group of diverse Edina citizens come together and provide them with some strategies and tactics that might help them accomplish some of the broad overarching goals that were identified and adopted through the comprehensive plan process.
And then where would the 2021 quality of life survey fit in? In other words, would it be contemplated that maybe some tweaks would be made to this document based on feedback that you get in the survey?
Not particularly, but I think the goal of the 2021 survey is to vet some of these strategies. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic and the limited ability to engage with people, we felt like the council might want to get some more public feedback on some of these goals and strategies, as we were unusually limited in our ability to take it to the public. So that was where that came out. We wanted to initially do our own survey, but given the resources that required, it felt like it was a better use of the city's resources if they already do this survey to tack on some questions specifically related to housing, specifically related to this report.
And does this represent a sort of, I don't mean to dominate the conversation, so if the other commissioners want to jump in, they may go ahead. But my question is, does this represent pretty much a consensus of the group? I mean, was there any controversy about any of the recommendations that we ought to be aware of?
I wouldn't describe it as controversy, but these are tough topics. And I think at the end of the day, the report reflects recommendations that everybody on the task force, the majority of members of the task force, felt like should be moved forward for council consideration. But as I mentioned, we were a diverse group and we certainly weren't in a mind meld. So there were topics where there was a diversity of opinion. But at the end of the day, we used in order to conclude our work, because we were given the charge initially to be done in like 6 months, and we ended up taking 18 months. And I think if we hadn't kind of agreed that majority ruled, and if someone felt very strongly and wanted to block something, they could, and it wouldn't be included, that we would have been at it for probably the next 3 to 5 years, just because, it's hard to get full absolute consensus on every single topic.
Jim, I would say that every member of the task force had to give up something they wanted in order to reach agreement, but we agreed early on that the majority would rule.
Yeah, and thanks, Dan, and I won't argue with the proposition that these are tough issues. They certainly are. And there is a lot of diversity of opinion in Edina about, I know.
Could you talk a little bit more about how the task force was formed? Like what was the process to become a member of the task force?
I think that's probably a question better posed to the city council, as we were just, we basically just applied and were selected by them. So I believe there was over 100 applicants, and Stephanie might be able to chime in on this more, but we applied and participated in interviews and were selected, and that's about as far as I know.
I can speak a little bit to this unless MJ wants to. The city council had started talking about a task force probably in January of 2018, it must have been then. So a charge was drafted and approved in May of 19. Then it was open on our website to apply. And we didn't receive quite 100, but we received a robust number of applications. The city council reviewed them all. They met and selected 7 people.
Chair Behringer, could I say something?
Yeah, go ahead,
Okay.
Commissioner Coleman.
I thought the report was well done. You can tell the time was put into it. You could also tell that it reflected a great diversity of the group. I saw an organization from the right and organizations from the left, and I think how it turned out was pretty good. I was impressed. So thank you for all your hard work.
What's the next step on this? I know this was submitted for our review, but we really haven't had a chance to look at it in great detail. It is pretty long. What is the timing on this as far as the next step is concerned?
Stephanie, could you help us navigate that?
Yep, will do. I'm trying to get my video up. We are required to bring this before the HRA and City Council before the end of the year. So we're bringing it before the HRA on December 10th and the City Council on the 15th. So the next week, it's not in the final format. It needs to go to a copy editor and get the pictures that are put in, get better quality printing done on it. And so final editing is occurring this week, and then it has to be formatted. So this is the last week for doing editing. I want to add too, if I may, that there's planning commission on this, because instead of having the task force meet with meetings 2 nights in a row, and the planning commission had a full agenda for tomorrow night, they're also here. So I want to make sure that if they have questions as well or input, that we hear from them.
Stephanie, this is Sheila Berube. I'm on the Planning Commission, and I do have a couple things. First, I read through the report and I thought it seemed really well done. So congratulations to all the people who worked on it. It's well written. It seems really thorough. It's very logical, easy to understand. So nice job. I do have a couple questions, and Stephanie, I would guess maybe you, maybe Carrie, one of you might be the appropriate person for this. I'm interested in the numbers that come from the Met Council regarding affordable housing in general, and then for Edina in particular. And I saw that on page 5, there are the priorities for new housing in Edina, and it's basically 992 affordable housing units over the proposed time frame. And then Maxfield has some additional suggestions for not necessarily just affordable, but occupancy, multifamily type and senior housing. So that's pretty clearly laid out. But then on page 31, it says the Met Council's forecasted demand for the area is 37,900. For Edina, that allocation is 1,800. But they're only putting in 900. And so it says Metropolitan Council's established a production goal of 992 units for Edina that it thinks is realistic. So is it that the Met Council thinks we should be allocated 1,800, and there's a question of like how that allocation is done? Like, is it by geographic areas? Is it by amount of space? Is it by amount that's currently here, or a deficit of what's here? But then also, if the need is 1,800 and that's what we're allocated, then why then did they say 992? Basically half that amount. So that's a very confusing concept.
Right. Chair, Commissioner, I can answer that. And Carrie and I have had some discussions on this. When the Planning Commission when you're drafting your comprehensive plan, the number that you were given regarding the need based on a regional formula was the 1804. And that is what is reflected in the comprehensive plan. So that is the need number. Then after the comprehensive plan process, the Metropolitan Council gathered representatives from city, county, advocates, housing organizations, a whole large group of people, determine what was the goal number. And the goal number, and there's a hearty debate regarding this on whether or not the goal number and the need number should be the same number. Different communities had different perspectives, but they applied the same lens and the same formula to everyone involved. So what was determined was that based on the availability of federal funding, state funding, Metropolitan Council funding, and county funding, that basically 45% of the need number was potentially achievable by the financing. So they look at how much an affordable unit costs, how much can be leveraged through debt, and then what would the gap be that needed to be filled by public sources. So looking at all those public sources and what tends to be available, they realized that only 45% of the need number could actually be built with the financing constraints. They added an additional 10% because each community could have an inclusionary housing policy, could use TIF, could have an affordable housing trust fund, could have other sources. So they made it 55% of the overall need number, and that's where the 992 comes from. So the 992 number is a goal based on the financial realities of what it costs to build affordable housing.
Okay. So presumably that's going to change over the next 10 years based on interest rates and how regulation changes for funding and that sort of thing. So does this get recalibrated every couple of years, or is it just every 10 years you have a new goal?
Every 10 years, Chair, Commissioner, every 10 years you have a new goal. Now, to be truthful, our goal for the last 10-year comprehensive plan cycle was the 212. And every community, based on their formula, has a different goal and need number, and no city has ever achieved their goal number because of the financing constraints.
Okay.
But we have to complete an annual report to the Met Council talking about what steps we've taken in trying to achieve those goals.
Okay. What a great answer. Thank you, Stephanie. You clearly know your information. Thanks, I appreciate it.
Kate Agnew, did you have a question?
I did, yes, thank you. So Kate Agnew, also on the Planning Commission. Just to echo Sheila, I think this is an amazing report, and I did find the time, I don't know how, to get through all of it before this meeting. And one thing that I think really aligns to what we're discussing as a Planning Commission right now is the references to parking and the impact of parking. I know that affordable housing and parking are tightly coupled, so I was glad to see some of those references throughout the document. I'm curious if it was considered making a recommendation or even thinking through the impacts of decoupling parking prices from the costs of rent to really drive for that affordability in housing. Is that something that was discussed or talked about as a group?
Can you restate what you were inquiring as to what we discussed?
Yeah, so decoupling housing with parking. And so what that would mean, if we're looking at building a new development, not having 2 parking stalls be attached to every unit, but rather saying the units are separate, and then if you want to pay for parking, you can rent a stall on a per stall basis. I'm just not sure if that's a concept that was discussed or gone into any depth.
There was discussion. There was no conclusion drawn. So your point about, you can rent if you want to rent it, if you don't want to rent it. Obviously, if it's going to be built, someone's going to pay for it to be built. And it's either the requirement of the city or the market that's driving how many parking spaces. Even if we wish we didn't have to build any. And you're right, it's an expensive piece of the building.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Felton?
Thank you, Chair Behringer. I want to come back to the affordable housing and the formula between goals and the needs. You mentioned that about this really comes down to affordability, financial support. And they're estimated that 55% there's the necessary financing to bring about this 992. And then you mentioned that the goal has never been reached. So I was just curious, one, how close did you guys come to reaching the goal, or other cities? What's the closest, and how close did Edina come?
I can't speak for other cities. In the 2010 to 2020 comprehensive plan, as I stated, the goal was 212 units of affordable housing. By 2015, 0 of them had been developed. So 66 West has 39 units, and that was developed. And that was the first affordable housing development that had occurred in many, many years since Common Bond had done some of their developments in the southern end of York. So we have made great strides in the last few years, starting in 2015, but came far short of the goal.
Chair Behringer?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Stephanie, then what has been the issue with not achieving the goal? Has it been just a question of leadership, question of financial support, or just a political issue? Or can you tell me what we need to do to get closer to that goal? I mean, closer to the goal.
Chair, commissioners, I've only been here for 2 years, so I don't know exactly what happened prior to me coming. I think Director Teague might be able to provide some insight. There may have been, I don't want to speak to that. I don't know what was the issue.
Yeah, I could jump in there. I will add, back in, say, 2011 or so, the City Council did approve a project over by the YMCA to build 100 units of affordable housing for folks with disabilities. Had that project been built, we would have come much closer. We would have been halfway there with that one project. So that was one that the council did support. There were a few projects earlier that had some units within them. And I think that's what Stephanie's referring to. We're having some issue with some compliance of some of these developments. With Stephanie on board, we're going to be monitoring that much closer now in the future. So we see things getting brighter for us in terms of monitoring and making sure that they are happening once they are approved.
Thank you, Carrie. And just one more question, Chair Behringer. I'm just curious, if the last 10 years the goal was 212, and this year looks like it's almost 3-4 folds higher, why be so optimistic when it looks like reality is we're not even coming close to the lower number?
Chair, commissioners, I can't speak for everyone. I can give my opinion, and please keep it as it's, my opinion based on my experience here. you know, in reading, when I first started the job, I was reading through old files, and the quest for affordable housing has been a part of the narrative in the city since the 70s. There, you find newspaper articles and editorials talking about how it is needed in Edina, and this is not new. However, the difference between incomes and cost of housing has grown steadily since the 80s, 90s, even now. And you saw in the report a graph between the average wages of the major industries in Edina versus the average amount that's needed to be able to afford an average priced house. And the split is just perpetually growing. So I think there's been, over time, greater political will to make sure that this need is fulfilled. I think there's been a greater understanding in the community, too, that there is a need. A lot of the schools, we have open enrollment, and you read a 2006 report, and they're saying that in order for the schools to stay healthy, we need children to occupy those schools. And Edina has becoming an aging community. I heard a statistic that the average age of Edina is equivalent to some retirement communities in Arizona. So, but young families if the young families can't afford to move into Edina, you can't populate the schools, and therefore you have to address why can't they move into Edina. So it's a pretty complex issue, but I think there's a lot of political will, and I think there's a lot of community will to try to get a handle on it and change course.
Chair Behringer,
Go ahead, Mark.
I wanted to say, Stephanie, I've heard a lot of great things about you and that you're really dedicated to what you're doing. So thank you for that. And I know you really tried hard on the Dugan Plaza, which is maybe 2 or 3 blocks from where I live. And but anyway, I know it's probably, and I think this was what Jim said, this really is a political issue more than anything, which makes it very complicated. So I feel for you, but thank you for all your hard work.
I just wanted to comment on the discussion of the Met Council numbers. That's a topic that we as a task force spent many hours reviewing and debating and analyzing and talking to the Met Council about how they derived them. And Stephanie did an excellent job of summing up how the numbers are arrived at. As far as including the 992 in the report versus, when you look back at the historical production, there's quite a big variation there. I think our goal as a task force was to be aspirational and to call attention to this number from the Met Council. And we didn't want to, because we felt like there is momentum perhaps in the city, there are some developments moving forward now. We didn't want to necessarily cap and say, well, it's 992, but we really think it should be 350 or 250. We didn't feel like that was our place. And so after much debate, we decided to align. Plus, it's confusing when you start adding more numbers and more derivations of where we use this calculation. We decided that to make it consistent with the comp plan and other documents, that we would just use those numbers and rely on those numbers for our discussion of that topic.
Hello, can you hear me? This is Ian Imrov. I'm on the Planning Commission, and thanks for everything you did to do this. It was a lot of work, and just like members of the Planning Commission, member of the Human Rights Commission, everyone on the task force was a volunteer and put a lot of time and care into this. So thank you very much. I think everyone on this call has empathy and appreciation for the work that you did. I'd like to. On the Planning Commission, we spend a lot of time talking about affordable housing, and we consider it very important. But it's just a subset of our responsibility, which includes housing more generally. And one way to look at this is growth in affordable housing is a subset of growth in housing. And my perception, my personal perception, was the impetus for this task force wasn't necessarily affordable housing, but it was. There are citywide conversations there is citywide concern and conversations necessary on affordable housing, and I think you've really moved the ball on that. But there's also citywide conversations, citywide concern, and the need for citywide conversations more generally on growth in housing. That is a very hot button topic. Every time a development comes before us, we get a lot of letters about traffic and congestion and negative impact on schools and several other negative effects that will come from growth in housing, impact on people's views, and a variety of other concerns. Did the task force, we've talked about affordable housing. Could you talk for a few moments about what the task force considered generally about growth in housing generally, as just a larger item? Thank you.
If I could answer first, Ian, this is Dan Hunt. We had a lot of discussions about housing in general, about the amount of single-family housing in the city, the impact of the densification in the commercial corridors, because we knew it was an issue, and there were a lot of different opinions about it. I would say opinions from some people felt there shouldn't be any more densification of the city, and some people felt that we weren't doing enough of it. So we were certainly aware of the impact of it, both on the neighborhoods around where new developments happen, but also a general feeling of what people felt about their single-family neighborhoods and them either not wanting to be impacted by new development or people living in single-family neighborhoods wanting to see more development. There wasn't a consensus on it. I assume there's not on the Planning Commission either.
I do think that one of the topics that we did talk about was one of the principles we all agreed on was that Edina is primarily a single-family community, and that we wanted to maintain that single-family character, and that we wanted to focus development around. We recommended that the City Council continue to focus development around areas where there are small area plans and along corridors where it was more into commercial nodes where we felt like it was more appropriate and there was more redevelopment opportunities and potentially less controversy. I mean, maybe that's a pipe dream, but that we kind of focus the development. But I think certainly not the consensus, but the majority felt that we wanted to move forward a pro-growth agenda. Some of it at different speeds, but we also, we looked at affordable housing as a component, but that was definitely not the only area of housing that we reviewed and discussed.
Thank you. My impression, I'll speak a little bit on behalf of the Planning Commission, but I think I have a good summary of where the Planning Commission was at. Was that we view the comprehensive plan as a pro-growth document to help improve to help achieve the affordable housing goals, but also for several other benefits that we see to the city arising from growth. That, however, is a large matter of controversy, and probably was one of the reasons a lot of people wanted to put this group together to get the discussion. It is a hard one. Thank you for wrestling with it and coming up with what you did. So thank you.
Hi, this is Joanne. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Thanks. So one of my questions, and Carrie, maybe you can correct me, but I know that as part, again, we're talking affordable housing, but as part of the affordable housing requirements for developers, they can either provide the unit or write the city a check. And I know that that money has been going into a fund. And I was thinking that this report was going to cover that or, you know, suggest where those funds should be used. Am I mistaken? Or Carrie or Stephanie? You know, it should,
I can
I don't see
start
it
and
be.
Stephanie can.
Okay, thanks, Carrie.
That's really an issue for the city council. How the funds be spent. I know they've been working somewhat with the housing foundation, but I'll let Stephanie respond more if that was something that was talked about with the task force.
It was talked about. It wasn't, and Dan and Bernadette could speak to this since they're the co-chairs. There's constant questioning about whether or not it should be allowable option or whether or not we should just require the inclusion of affordable units. And personally, I'm a proponent of allowing the buy-in option. This is a decision for the city council, and it is not addressed specifically in this report, but it was in discussions, and I was honest in that I am a supportive of the buy-in option because I don't believe that every project is suitable for affordable housing. For example, when the Lifetime project was being proposed, that it included a membership fee. And so in order to get the rents down, you'd either not allow them to be members of the Lifetime, and then there's you have these silos of people, plus the fact the buy-in funds lead to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which is a very flexible source of funds and can be used for affordable housing developments for which there are not other sources. So, but no, the report does not address how those funds should be used or whether or not they should exist.
I thought the question was, did we discuss how the funds should be used, not whether the city should be giving developers the option of collecting them? Am I correct? Okay.
I do recall some discussions about whether or not they should even be allowed. No.
I'm not arguing that, but that was her question.
No, you all didn't really discuss that on how they should be used.
Are there any other questions? I actually have a question, and I apologize, I'm only halfway through the report, so I still would like to ask my question, but I apologize if it is in the report. I was struck by the conversation about children and needing children to be in the schools to keep the schools healthy. But when I look at the units for multifamily housing, I was just wondering if there was any discussion about the kinds of units, because it occurs to me that a lot of apartments tend to be studios or one bedrooms and can't accommodate a family. So I was just wondering what the discussion was around that.
Well, I mean, there's ample two-bedroom units in almost all the new developments. So for families that two-bedroom units would work, it was there. But obviously, if you got two kids, a two-bedroom unit at some point becomes untenable. And my understanding is there's very few units beyond that. So that might be something the city looks at when they have a requirement for affordable, that there be more multi-bedroom units.
There is some data about the average number of students per unit in the report. And so basically what our thought was to try to encourage a mix of housing types and diversity of housing types. That was a very important part of our conversation, again, was to make Edina an inclusive, welcoming community, that we provided a diversity of housing types, and that perhaps that might lead to people who are in larger homes or larger apartments, or, you know, they might move to out of their home into an apartment, that there's all sorts of cycling through the housing market that could happen if we provided a wider, and we're conscious about providing a wider variety of housing options at different price points, different sizes, that sort of thing. And we recommend that the city council be mindful of that as they're evaluating housing proposals, understanding that, you know, any large scale housing proposal is likely going to get quite a bit of pushback from the community based on historic conversations. And one of the conversations in critiques that's often used is that apartment buildings are going to bring children, and the children are going to ruin the schools, or going to overrun our schools, or going to make the schools worse. And the idea is that's actually not true, and that Edina needs children, and even with increased housing development of all kinds, we will not overrun our schools. So that was part of the discussion of why we included that. And the quality of schools, we felt like is an important community driver and a reason that people want to be in our community. And it's a point of pride, and supporting and holding up our schools as something that is a real asset was something that was very important to the task force. And we didn't want to make any recommendations that we felt like would be counter to the success and strength of our schools. And so that was an important component for us to include that in the report.
Commissioner Stringer Moore.
Good evening. I've not finished the report myself, but just following up on that conversation around schools and population control. I know a lot of times in the HRRC, we talk about, you know, peer cities that we compare ourselves to and benchmark against. Are there any cities that have had an opportunity area where they were concerned about children for the schools and have rebounded properly that we can look at?
The task force didn't dwell on that. Maybe city staff can answer that question.
That wasn't looked at by staff or by the task force.
I don't want to make it sound like there's some sort of crisis in the school population. You know, it's, you know, our schools are well attended. It's just the idea that there's certainly capacity, and that we want to be mindful as we look to the future, that we are providing entry points into the community for new households with children who want to relocate to the community. So there isn't, I mean, and we really relied on the study from 2000. Is it from the study of the Edina schools conducted by
Hazel Reinhardt?
Yes, was kind of the jumping off point for that conversation for us.
Hi, this is Ian again. Because you guys, it's been a crazy year, and I mean, this is like one of the least crazy things we've had to deal with. But when you joined the task force, no one expected a pandemic, or not many people expected a pandemic. But we had one. To what extent did you guys think to discuss the pandemic and how that might change things long term? Both for single family and multifamily.
Well, we discussed it because we knew you'd be asked questions about it, as you're doing. You know, I mean, I think there were lots of opinions about how things might change. Some of them along the lines of the maybe a dampening of the desire to live in downtown Minneapolis and subsequently more people living in the first ring suburbs was a point we discussed. But I don't recall much more than that. Maybe Bernadette can add something to this.
Well, and I think it also just in the context of people working at home and being kind of self-selecting into the communities where they're not quite so tied to where their job or their office is located, that they might have more flexibility, and that again could lead to people make decisions based on other things other than proximity to their office. That it might be things like schools, parks, public safety, other things that Edina prides itself on providing. And so we anticipated that could potentially increase demand. But as far as like structural, like changes to homes or square footages or housing size or anything like that, I mean, we did not get down to that level.
Any other questions? Any further discussion from the Housing Task Force? I'd like to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say it was it was not easy. There were a lot of difficult discussions, but people managed to hang in there, and they all deserve a little bit from the city recognition for what was done.
Yeah, I'd like to reiterate all of the comments that thank you for your hard work. It was a lengthy process. The document's very thorough. That's why some of us haven't finished reading it. We just would really like to take time and give it the proper attention that it deserves. So thank you for investing all of that time and energy into putting that together. We really appreciate that. Thank you for your presentation, and thank you for the Planning Commission for joining us and for the robust discussion.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to the 2020 work plan for the HRRC. So we'll just get started as people are exiting. Initiative 1 was Days of Remembrance, and that was put on hold. Initiative 2 is the Tom Oil Award, which we have that separated out, so we'll come back to that. Initiative 3 is completed. That was the Sharing Values, Sharing Communities. Initiative 4 was the art rubric. That was also completed. Initiative 5 was the Parks Initiative, which was returned to, it's on hold. Initiative 6 was the Bias Offense Plan. Are there any updates for the Bias Offense Plan? Okay. Initiative 7. Oh,
Didn't we just get from Heidi the revised edits to the plan?
I was having trouble unmuting. Sorry about that.
Oh,
yes.
sorry.
Yeah, we just got it.
Hot off the press. We did get. We just got a response back from the police chief, and so our committee will set a date to meet again to review that. And we also have some dates that we're lining up for our quarterly meeting.
Yeah, I'm looking at this, what we just got on the bias offense response plan. I'm a little confused, but where are his comments? I can't figure out what comments are. They look like they're all yours, Heidi.
The comments are in red, so we can when the subcommittee decides that they want to meet to go over the edits, I can certainly be part of that process. to help guide where the edits are from the police chief.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, I thought it was hard to discern too, Jim. So, good. Thank you.
Great. Sounds like things are moving right along. So that's fantastic. Initiative 7 was the proclamation, and that's been completed. Initiative 8 was what we were just talking about. Are there any comments that you guys would like to make about the Housing Policy Task Force reports?
Chair Behringer, also, if there are additional comments, I did speak to Stephanie Hawkinson. If there are additional comments, to provide them, whether to her, and she will share to the Housing Task Force as well as the consultant. Any direct comments by Friday is the time frame that I was given.
Okay. So, yeah. Okay, great. So by Friday, which is, what's the date on Friday?
The 20th.
Okay, thank you. All right.
I would just comment that from what I saw, and I only read about a half of it, I guess. I mean, it's certainly from a HRC perspective, I think it hit the right notes. I mean, you know, there's a lot of discussion about the historical impact of racial covenants and that type of thing, and making Edina more welcoming and not exclusive isn't the word I'm looking for, inclusive community. So, I mean, I think from that standpoint, you know, we don't have the technical expertise to make technical comments. It certainly looked like it was considering what we would consider the right things. But I'll finish reading it.
There was a good amount of sensitivity to senior populations and the shifting housing requirements, and I don't know if those numbers are big enough, but at least our lens was there.
Yeah, senior and disabled. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and there wasn't a whole lot about transportation, which is one of the other things that, you know, that density is going to be a problem no matter how we slice it and dice it. But I thought that they did a decent job. The charts were hard to read. Are the charts coming out in a better fidelity, do you think, when they get past the draft? I was trying to read some of I was zooming it out to 300% and having a little trouble with it, but does anybody else have problems with the charts?
Yeah, I couldn't really follow them very well.
It may be my senior eyesight.
Well,
but
yours and mine both. Yeah.
So
I was impressed with the range of topics that they covered. Thought it was really thorough. So, all right, should we move on to the Tom Oy Award then? So, Heidi, would you like to explain how the voting will work?
Sure. And so this year, with the Tom Oy Award, there was 7 nominations, which has been a lot larger than normal. And so with this voting process for the voting commissioners to be able to indicate their top 3 choices, I will go ahead and tabulate the top 3 and let you know immediately. And then with the top 3, then you as a commission will go ahead and decide the award recipient based on your conversation.
All right. So I would just like to acknowledge before we go ahead and vote all of the people that were nominated. And it was so great to see so many people be nominated. And I apologize for any mispronunciation of names, but I'm going to go ahead and say them anyway. The Dyslexia Parent Alliance, Francesca Leitenberger, Rebecca Sorensen, Rachel Benro, and the Edina High School Black Student Union, Shreya Kankamala, Aaron Zamoff, Michelle Meek, Sayeli Amarapurka, and Asha USA. So congratulations to all of those people for their work in Edina, and I just think it's amazing that we have so many nominees, and I know that there are so many other people doing amazing things in our city. So it's just really great to see those people be recognized, and I want to extend that to everyone who is putting out their energy and efforts towards doing good in Edina and the world. So just wanted to start there. So how do we start the voting?
We can start with you, Chair Berenger, if you'd like to just give your top three, please.
Okay, I had Shreya Kankamala, Sayali Amar Apurka, and Asha USA, and then the Dyslexia Parent Alliance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Epstein? Oh, you're on mute.
I'm having a rough day with that. Okay, I had, sorry about that, Francesca, Rebecca Sorensen, and Shreya Kankamala.
Thank you. Commissioner Stringer Moore?
Good evening. I have the Dyslexia Parent Alliance, Rebecca Rachel and the Edina Black Student Union, and Sayalu Amara Perkar and Asha USA.
Thank you. Commissioner Felton?
I really didn't select anyone because I don't know enough about. Can I defer right now and wait till the committee comes up or the commission comes up with the top three, and then I'll probably vote. I'm not in a position to pick the top three right now. I don't think I'll do a good job. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Nelson?
Okay, I'm not going to do any better than anybody else on the pronunciations, but Sorensen, the Sorensen and the Edina High School Black Student Union, and Shreya and Sayali and Asha USA.
Thank you. Commissioner Edwards?
Francesca, wonderful, wonderful presentation. Aaron and Asha USA.
Thank you. And Commissioner Ross? Oh, you're on mute.
Michelle Meeker, and Aaron Zamoff.
And I'm sorry, your first one? I think I didn't hear your first one.
Shreya Kankamala.
Great, thank you. And so for the voting members, we have the top three vote receivers are Rebecca Sorensen and the Edina Black Student Union, and Rachel Eden Ben Rowe is one of the top vote getters. Shreya Kankamala, I apologize for the pronunciation, and Sayali Amor Porca and Asha USA are the top three.
I'm sorry, could you go through those again? I'm sorry, I apologize.
Sure. Rebecca Sorensen and
okay.
Rachel, as well as the Edina Black Student Union. Shreya Kankamala and Sayali Amar Porcar and Asha USA are the ones. So each received, the Black Student Union and Rebecca Sorensen and Rachel received 3 votes. Shreya received 4, and Saali and Asha USA received 4. So those are the top 3.
I just wanted to pause for a minute to let everyone know that Francesca, as a nominee, has turned off her screen and muted herself. But since this is a public hearing, she can go ahead and keep listening to the discussion. So. All right, so are there any comments about the top 3?
Well, my only comment is I'm going to have a hard time voting because they were actually, I mean, all of the nominees were really terrific. We have an amazing group of people, and especially young people. I'm really so happy to see nominations of at least 3 of them were young, really young people, and it's really thrilling to see that.
Yeah, I
don't
agree.
have any other specific comments, unfortunately.
Commissioner Stringer Moore?
Yeah, I think that we, we have a great group of applicants this year. And unfortunately, I'm not familiar personally with everybody that was nominated. I would just like to say that I did attend the Seeds, the Rebecca Source and Rachel and Edina BSU. I did attend the organized protest, and I was extremely impressed by Rachel's leadership at a young age. And then I also attended the opening arts events, Seeds of Change. And that was an amazing event. And then I know that there was also community pushback from some members of the community, rightfully so, but I just thought it was very impactful to see how the students persevered and stayed on course. So I'd just like to speak to their resiliency and their leadership and passion.
Commissioner Edwards, did you have a comment?
I did. I kind of regret that we went back to having just one. I mean, at one point, I think we talked about a student and a, I don't know, I don't want to say adult, but I think at one point, didn't we have two?
We did one year.
We did, and
This is the best field for that. No, it would have been perfect to do that this year, but I understand we can't. So anyway. And again, I can't say enough good stuff about Francesca's work. It looked like a huge spectrum of effort across every human rights issue that we touch. So that was pretty amazing. So
yeah, she was covering
I really agree with you, and I just, the only reason I didn't include her, because I think she was a top-notch candidate, was that she is on the commission.
I would like to echo Commissioner Nelson's remarks too. I felt the same way, but that was a very thorough nomination.
Yeah, absolutely.
Commissioner Mirza?
So first of all, am I allowed an opinion in this matter, or is it only for voting members?
No, you're allowed to contribute, absolutely.
So I ended up finding a copy of Shreya's book that was spoken about in her application because I had it at school, and I read through it, and it was a really well-written book, and I do believe that the impact that that would have had is one that should be considered, because it speaks to every person, especially of Indian descent, and the struggles that they may have faced. And then I was also interested in how the funds went through. So I kind of like went to the back of the book, because she I think there was an ending that explained her trip to India. And I think the impact she's had on like those families that she went to visit was really strong. And I think that should count for something, at least, especially because it not only helped people within Edina and helped educate those around us, but it had an impact on other countries, and even with her being invited to the United Nations to give a speech there as well.
Yeah, she's an amazing person, obviously.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Commissioner Stringer-Moore?
Yeah, just a point of clarification. Commissioner Edwards mentioned our decision to go back to one award. My understanding is that that's for 2021, or did we make that decision for 2020? Because I know we were talking.
It's for this year. That was our charge from the council.
Okay.
Oh, that's right. I had forgotten that. That was as directed by City Council. That was not our decision.
Okay. I know we talked about it for the 2021 work plan, but I couldn't remember if we had made that change for this work plan.
Well, one thing that occurs to me is that the Sorensen and the Black Student Union matter has some real immediacy and currency, given the events of this year, for whatever that's worth.
I know a lot of people had commented that that art exhibit meant a lot to them, provided a lot of reassurance, hope.
And I would just say, to Commissioner Nelson's point, the fact that they were able to mobilize and execute something in the middle of a health pandemic, in the middle of dealing with their own emotions, speaks to their leadership and passion.
It's hard. So Heidi, what do we do now? Oh, you're on mute.
With that voting process, so you have discussed the three applicants or the nominations that have received the most votes, do you feel that there is more discussion that needs to be had in order to select one recipient?
Is there any further discussion?
Mark, how do you feel? Are you planning on? Are you going to abstain on the vote, or have you kind of?
I was just rereading.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see of the top three, which activity has more sustainability, or which activity actually has more long-lasting effect? You know, which one impacted the most people, and will continue to impact them. So I was at the event you mentioned, Commissioner Stringer Moore. It was good, and that was, yeah, it was well done, well put on, and they faced a lot of people. But the young lady from India, of India descent, that also looks pretty impressive to me. I don't know. I'm still going to have to defer to the group and vote accordingly. I'm sorry.
Are there folks that are leaning towards one person or one group rather than the other? I think even just if there was a possibility to determine who would be, because I think you all bring up valid points of each of the nominations, whether it was the top three or all seven, do have have considerable contributions to human rights. And I know that it is a hard decision, and especially given the fact that with this year that you have received 7 nominations, and trying to determine which one of those nominations would be the one that would be the award recipient. I do think about Commissioner Felton's statements as far as what is the sustainability and the impact of those folks that you have nominations in front of you. And really thinking about that, this is, it's a hard decision. So I think that, if it is that you do need more time, really thinking about what are some of the things that Student Commissioner Mirza has talked about in his experience with some of the folks, as well as some of the things that you've seen in the community to help determine who the award recipient would be.
But we are kind of committed at this point to deciding tonight, are we not?
Yes.
It has to go to the council, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Was Francesca excluded because of her membership on the HRRC? Is that?
Yes, because she is a commissioner, but she was nominated. She was recused from the discussion.
She's not a voting member anyway. But
yeah, I just know that she was taken off the list. So, is anyone on the commission familiar with OSHA USA? I haven't heard any discussion. The first thing I saw was the application and the website, so I didn't know if anybody else had any input for that group.
It was one that I voted for just based on the application, but I don't have any other knowledge.
I don't either. I just looked at the website.
I mean, it sounds like a very impressive organization.
I don't have a frame of reference to that organization or the Dyslexia Parents Organization, but
yeah, I don't either.
Again, I was impressed by their application.
A couple of the links from that they were both really impressive. So, but I don't know what. I mean, nobody here has much experience with either, I assume.
So Heidi, the next round, should we go do our top 2 of the final 3?
If that is how you think that your group would be able to get to a consensus, I can certainly go ahead and do another round of voting. If there are 2 that stick out, and then keep the voting until one is determined, that certainly can be the process.
I guess that wouldn't be too difficult to do.
Right.
Yeah, it seems reasonable.
Okay. I will go ahead and start the process. Chair Behringer, for your top 2, please.
I would say the Rebecca Sorensen and Rachel and the Shreya Kankamala would be my top two.
Great, thank you. Vice Chair Epstein?
Same.
Okay. Commissioner Stringer Moore?
Same.
Commissioner Felton, would you like to provide?
Can I wait until?
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
Commissioner Nelson?
Same.
Okay. Commissioner Edwards?
Man, you chickens. Black Student Union and ASHA USA.
Okay.
Put it out there, guys. Come on.
So with that particular round of voting, it is Rebecca, Rachel, and the Black Student Union, and Shreya.
Yeah.
Do we start the next round of voting?
I guess the next round is the final because we can't do 1.5, right?
Nope.
Oh, we should have done ranked choice for the top two. Oh. Sabi, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I remember what Commissioner Felton was saying about like weighing the magnitude of like what the top two have done. So then the question is going to come down to which one has made a more impactful decision, because the question comes down to whether it's a big impact on Edina itself or like a kind of smaller impact but on a larger scale, like on India and America, and then as well as the United Nations. So it comes down to weighing small but impactful or larger and like less impactful. So I don't know how y'all are going to decide with that.
I think this is why we went to the 2 awards at one time, because we felt it was hard to measure someone that was 18 or 17 against someone that was 70 and had a wealth of work. So I think at this time we just have to go off application and, personal recommendations and our own frame of reference and experiences.
Well, and I think also with the time that we're in, with the way that the year was and all the things that occurred. So I get the idea of how impactful it will be for a long time in history. But also, I think it's also important to point out that, where somebody was at a certain point in history and what they were dealing with and the pressures that they were under. So I can kind of see that going either way.
Yeah, I think the impact is a consideration, but it's not the only one. Yeah.
Local and global.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, don't always really know what the impact of something like this is. If it circles, this was the year that a lot of things happened, and you don't know what 2021 will bring, and if events like that will take place again. Like, you just, maybe they have another art exhibit. Maybe this was the beginning of something that is ongoing, or
Well, I was just speaking more to the fact that Minneapolis became the center of the universe for a small amount of time, and that's a rare thing that happens, and so that's what happened in 2020, and so for the Black Student Union to be able to get together and make something beautiful out of something so ugly, I don't know, it just feels like that's a really it's something that happened to our city, so I don't know.
It's very significant.
And the fact that they persevered, because I would say that they persevered, that it was not just that they came together and created something, but they came together, created something, and also experienced adversity from their own members of their own community, which
Right.
can be very, paralyzing as an adult. I know negative feedback sometimes, words do hurt. I always say our parents lied. They said sticks and stones may break our bones, but words will never hurt us. Words do hurt, and to persevere during that, I think, speaks to impact. And I was just going to say, Michael or Commissioner Epstein, you might know this. I remember I debated in high school, and my debate coach, Frida Goodman, said there was this Jewish proverb that said, if you save one life, it's as if you save the world. And I've modified it to say, if you touch one life, it's as if you change the world, because you just never know when we're talking about impact, when we're talking about Sharia, you know, just one person doing one thing, you don't know what the domino effect of that is. So
there's tons of numbers about that. And again, being an out person in the 70s when Anita Bryant was ripping through Florida, and knowing what the impact of our little tiny footsteps forward did to save a whole lot of suicides and to save a whole lot of destruction, making a move young and seeing role models ahead of you, that, you know, it's good trouble, right? It's the kind of stuff that really changes the whole community's environment. And I completely support this vote. So
Anita Bryant, there's a name I haven't heard for a while, Cindy.
I got boxfuls of stuff if you ever want to go through some archives.
No, that's okay.
About your archives all the time, Commissioner Edwards. Like, have you seen that stuff? That's off topic, but I get a lot of, every time Jill and I talk, she brings it up.
Yep. And I was a baby girl. I mean, we were doing this stuff as youngsters, and that's what's happening here, and that's so important.
Yeah.
That they have the courage and the support to be able to do those kinds of, you know, emotional things, but also be politically appropriate and try and keep the venue appropriate for the city. And I think it's a local event, right? So
I think we can invite Francesca back in if she has any comments. Hi, Francesca. Congratulations on being nominated. That's a big deal. So.
Thank you. Yeah.
Did you have any comments for the discussion?
No, I think I was just more like rather like listening.
Okay. Sabi?
Commissioner Stringer Moore, what type of debate did you do?
Policy. I actually
Me
lettered
too.
in debate. Yeah, I lettered in debate. I think I had my debate gravel somewhere, but I lettered in debate in Georgia. Yeah. Came
Ooh,
second in the
congrats.
state in '97.
Another thing I will say is we were comparing, like, not necessarily magnitude, but like the impacts. And I do think the caste system in India is something that has deep rooted issues. And especially growing up as a brown person in America, even if you're not directly there, it's something that still impacts you because you're worried, like, how will the color of my skin affect me? And while the issues of the George Floyd protests were really significant, I think that the fact that Shreya wrote a book about it and then it was so well received is something that needs to be weighed as well, because it's people at the United Nations heard about it and invited her. And I think that it had such a big influence on people, like even overseas, that have grown up being told that because their skin was too dark in a society of people like them, that they wouldn't be respected as much. Because the book itself is about a young girl who's an outcast because of her skin color. And I think that message was just so strong. It's something that really resonated with me.
Say on the same vein, I would say that what the students did with the Black Lives Matter art, you know, as a person that was a young Black person at one time, I speak to the importance of representation. And I think for all people, no matter what your race is, what your gender, binary, non-binary, that representation is extremely important, because it plants seeds of what's possible.
Is there any further discussion? Are we ready for a vote? I think we're ready for a vote.
Okay. Chair Behringer?
Okay, I'm going to go with the Black Student Union.
Thank you. Vice Chair Epstein?
I'll do the same.
Thank you. Commissioner Stringer Moore?
Yep, I'm gonna follow Commissioner Edwards' advice and name him. I'm gonna go for Rebecca, Rachel, and the Black Student Union.
Thank you. Commissioner Felton?
Yeah, I think everyone made good points. And Cindy, can I ask who are you thinking about?
Francesca, but no, that's off the table.
Okay.
So, Black Student Union.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to not defer, but concur with my fellow commissioners. I confer and believe in their judgment, so I'm going with the Black Student Union as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Nelson?
I will vote the same way.
Okay. And then to confirm, Commissioner Edwards, your vote is for Rebecca, Rachel, and the Black Student Union?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So it has been confirmed that Rachel, Rebecca, and the Black Student Union will be the 2020 Tom Oy Human Rights Award recipients.
I appreciate it.
Good job.
Comments, particularly Student Commissioner Mirza, your comments were excellent. I agree with them. Have you read Isabel Wilkerson's book, Cast? Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it, but I haven't read it so far.
It's been telling a lot. It dwells on the caste system in India, but compares it to the Black experience in America too, in a way that's very effective. I haven't, but I haven't read it yet, but I've read reviews of it.
Heidi, what a great process.
Thank you for all engaging in the discussion.
That worked very well.
Not easy.
All right. Any further discussion on the Tom Oy Award? Okay. We can move on to the 2021 work plan. Heidi, is there anything that we need to discuss in the work plan?
I think one of the things that we'll need to discuss is really the Days of Remembrance as in the 2021 work plan. That is basically the first event that's coming up. And so it would be a discussion on which of the commissioners would like to participate. That's also including student commissioners to review and decide the logistics as well as the speakers and what the format will look like. And then I will also show a green print example since the commissioners have not decided who will be participating in the Days of Remembrance. I want to be able to provide an example so that can be approved for your next meeting.
Okay.
So that green print.
So let's move on to item D then, the 2021 Days of Remembrance work. So are there commissioners that would like to be a part of that event? Mr. B?
I'd participate, but I don't want to drive it.
Sure. Commissioner Edwards, Commissioner Stringer Moore. Is there anyone else? Oh, Francesca. Okay. All right. And then is there a lead then? I guess, Jasmine, would you like to be the lead on that? Since Commissioner Edwards has already declined.
And if we need three on there, I can be on that one too, Kat.
Oh, okay.
I feel like we should have Commissioner Epstein, yeah. But don't we already have the speaker from this year lined up?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, he's lined up. I imagine he could do it virtually.
Excellent.
And so just to confirm, the commissioners that will be on the Days of Remembrance will be Commissioner Stringer Moore, Commissioner Edwards, and Vice Chair Epstein, and then Student Commissioner Lechtenberger and Student Commissioner Mirza. Was that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
So then we just need the green print, is that right?
Yep, and I will go ahead and email that to you all. Did you want to see a copy of that version, or did you just want me to email it to the subcommittee? Would that be easier?
Want to see a copy? I think you can just go ahead and email it.
Okay, sounds good.
Great. All right, then we're moving on to, is there any further discussion before we move on? Okay, then we're moving on to chair and member comments. I don't have anything this time. Commissioner Edwards? Do you have anything?
Nope,
Chair and
sure
member
don't.
Okay.
Nope. I'll think of something, but not yet.
Okay. Commissioner Stringer Moore?
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Nelson?
I had something I was going to say, but and I'm sure it was really quite brilliant, but I've forgotten now what it is, so I'll have to pass.
All right. Commissioner Epstein?
Not at this time.
Commissioner Lichtenberger?
Well, yesterday I had a meeting for my club at school. We have like a monthly theme, and yesterday we started our monthly theme on Native American Heritage Month.
That's great.
Excellent. How many attended?
I believe 30. It was all virtual.
That's great. That's perfect.
Good for you.
That's really great. Commissioner Felton?
Not for me at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Mirza?
Nothing for me.
Okay. So then we'll move on to staff comments.
So I have a few staff comments. Just a reminder that that your meeting on December 1st will be at 5:30, which was decided last year, and that aligns with the the Tom Oy presentation that will be at City Council. So that will give you an opportunity to participate in the HRC meeting at 5:30 and then end at 7 o'clock for the presentation for the Tom Oy Award. And I will touch base with the subcommittee to decide who will be the person presenting that at City Council virtually as well. And then also to let you know that the 2021 HRC meeting calendar has been tentatively set. So it will be meeting, you will all be meeting the 4th Tuesday of every month, except for the November and December meetings. And that has been previously changed a week prior to allow for time because it falls within the holiday week. And so one point of suggestion as well is thinking about the November 2021 meeting to also be moved at 5:30 p.m. instead of 7 p.m. So that allows for folks to participate or attend the City Council meeting, which is at 7 that same night. So that's something to consider. The December 2021 meeting is tentatively scheduled for December 7th. And that will be at 5:30 as well. And that is tentatively when the Tom Oy Award would be awarded at City Council. And then also knowing that this meeting was packed with a lot of agenda items for the next meeting that will be on December 1st, I will be providing a just quick update on the race and equity work plan that was provided to City Council tonight. So it is in their packet as well.
Commissioner Stringer Moore?
I know Pat used to get the certificate for the Tom Oy Award recipient. Did someone take over that in her place? So should I do that? And then she would get it framed too.
If you would like to take that on, that would be great.
Do we have a template?
I can send you the template.
Okay. We can connect, Heidi. I'm
Okay.
around.
Okay, sounds good.
Great. Any further?
How does that work? Do you do that for the whole group or is it an individual? You do 3 of them?
I think we would do 3 for the named, like Rebecca, Rachel, and then one.
And then one for the school? Yeah.
Yeah, that
I
makes
imagine. Is that what everybody else is thinking?
That seems reasonable.
Yeah.
We've got that budget, don't we, Heidi? I think we do.
50
Michael's.
cents per certificate.
Michael's framed, so.
Oh, that's right, the frame. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And Student Commissioner Mirza?
Yeah, I'm sorry. On December 1st, are we meeting at 5 or 7?
We'll be meeting at 5:30.
Okay, thank you.
And then it will be a hard stop at 7 o'clock for you all.
All right, anything else? All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All right, so I have a motion to adjourn by Commissioner Nelson and second from Commissioner Felton. Reese, can you call the roll?
Chair Behringer,
Aye.
Commissioner Felton,
Aye.
Commissioner Epstein,
Aye.
Commissioner Nelson,
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards,
Aye.
Commissioner Stringer Moore.
Aye.
That concludes roll call.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Thanksgiving, yeah, stay safe.